Well, that's right, Chamberlain. Now, Nigerians may have seen the latest concerning that $9.6 billion judgment which was handed against Nigeria as far back as August. Don't forget, this started as far back as 2010, then arbitration 2012. Now we're in 2019, and P&ID is saying, yes, we are standing and saying that we deserve to get this money. But then a UK court yesterday granted Nigeria leave to appeal this judgment. So that is the latest. But the big question is, what does this mean to that $9.6 billion judgment, especially because the Nigerian government has repeatedly said this is a scam and the country will not stand for it. So watch this first, and then we'll come back to the conversation.
Of entertaining mutual legal assistance.
How does Nigeria begin to resolve a $9.6 billion years-old arbitration case? Earlier today, a UK judge granted Nigeria an opportunity to overturn the ruling of this high-stakes case of a collapsed gas deal that could cost Nigeria 2.5% of its GDP. In August, a British judge ruled that the government must begin the release of its assets to the small energy company Process and Industrial Developments, a company founded by two Irishmen and is registered in the British Virgin Islands, a British overseas territory. The case centres around a 2009 contract for P&ID to build a pipeline to carry the gas to a refinery, but it was never completed. P&ID said it spent $40 million on the project, a claim disputed by Nigeria. Since the summer ruling, Nigeria have stepped up its defence. Arrests have been made, and the government have launched a bid for the extradition of P&ID figureheads. This week, senior officials arrived in the UK in a bid to settle this matter once and for all.
The beauty of it is that time does not run against fraud. If your basis for challenging a contract or an arbitration award is on grounds of fraud, it does not matter when this comes up. And being able to discover that there are a lot of monetary inducement between the parties, between some officials of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the P&ID.
This is far from over. Nigeria has been ordered to pay $200 million to the British court within 60 days, or asset seizures will begin. During today's proceedings, lawyers representing Nigeria said that the judgment was flawed, primarily due to its acceptance that England was the proper seat of the arbitration. The Nigerian government insists that debunked P&ID contract represents fraud, irregularity and illegality. Juliana Olayinka, Channels Television News.
So that's the latest on this matter. We have the federal government on one hand and a relatively inexperienced oil firm, P&ID, on the other, saying we're going to go for your neck. Let's join Mr. Wahab Shittu. He's a lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, and also counsel to the EFCC this morning to shed more light on this. So this is where we are right now. We seem to be getting something right as Nigeria. What is that?
I think what we seem to be getting right this time is the attempt by our government to protect our national interest. Our strategic national interest is being protected by this administration. You see the quality of delegation that was deployed to the UK. You have two ministers, the Honourable Minister of Information and Culture. You have the Attorney General of the Federation. You have a crack team of lawyers who have gone to the UK.
And the CBN governor?
Yes, including the CBN governor, to present Nigeria's case. And what is Nigeria's case? Nigeria's case is summarized in what the Attorney General of the Federation said after that judgment. That this is a sham, a scam, which is based on fraudulent and criminal activity developed by P&ID to profit from a developing country. And that is why, in appreciating what is going on here, we need to see it as an international 419.
You think that's what it is?
Yes, international scam. Because there are about 8 criminal and fraudulent activities that have been discovered arising from investigations. And I'm free to comment about this because a court of competent jurisdiction in Nigeria has found, as a matter of fact, the following. 1, that in a findings conducted at the Cross River State Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Lands, has revealed that contrary to the claim made by P&ID, there was no land allocation anywhere, which is a prerequisite embedded in the contract. Secondly, and this is the aspect which we focus on, secondly, checks also, conducted at, some other agencies of government, like the Bureau for Public Procurement, has also revealed that the property, the contract,
right,
was not registered.
So the question now is, how relevant are these issues there? You said a court of competent jurisdiction in Nigeria, but don't forget, this is happening in a UK court. And the question now is, how relevant are these findings? Especially because yesterday, we didn't exactly bring up this issue. I think we're still talking about whether or not this should happen, in a UK court or not. We've not really gone into that, issue of saying this was fraudulent from the scratch.
It is very relevant because in a contract, when you are talking of the validity of any contract, whether local or international, the issue of fraud and corrupt practices is very relevant. And luckily for us, yesterday we secured a reprieve. Now the UK court, the commercial court in the UK has said, they granted our request for a stay of execution. That's a major victory. They also granted us leave to appeal the judgment.
But then $200 million, that's 72 billion naira.
Well, that also can be a subject of appeal. We have a 60-day window.
No, I think the 6-day window is actually to pay. Is it to appeal?
Yes, we can also appeal that conditional appeal.
Because I think what the Nigerian government is saying is that, give us time to try to raise these funds. I'm not sure we're talking about appeal. Are we?
But I'm saying that a lot of options are still available. For instance, we can now appeal the judgment. A stay of execution has been granted. The conditional appeal is that we must pay $200 million within 60 days. That's an order of
the court.
We can appeal that within the time frame. We can appeal that order, compelling us to pay $200 million. We can also, on appeal, seek leave of the appellate court to raise new issues, including the issues of fraud and corrupt practices. In other words, what has happened yesterday is a major reprieve for Nigeria. Now we have the opportunity to test the UK's commercial court decision.
So you think this opens a new vista of possibilities?
It opens a new vista of possibilities. It gives Nigeria the opportunity to demonstrate.
But if you look at the response from both parties, now the federal government is saying this is a win for us. But guess what? P&ID is also saying this is a win for us.
Of course, because you have a judgment in respect of $9.6 billion. That's still a subsisting judgment. That is why, and they are banking on that judgment. But we are saying that the foundation of that judgment is fraudulent, is criminal, and that is also subject to appeal. But do not forget that on appeal, Nigeria also has the opportunity of seeking leave of the appellate court to raise new issues, including issues of fraud,
right, including
issues bordering on corrupt practices. And I was trying to detail to you some of the corrupt practices that have been discovered in the course of investigation. Bordering on money laundering, bordering on tax evasion, bordering on failure to register the agreement, bordering on failure to take the agreement before the Federal Executive Council.
And we know that we will need to prove these things beyond reasonable doubt.
We can seek leave of the appellate court to raise new issues.
Okay, now while this is going on, a lot of people are also saying, let's negotiate. Let there be negotiation on the side. But we hear that the head of the FCC is saying there should be no form of negotiations. What do you think?
I think we have gone beyond that now. I think the federal government delegation that went to the UK went with all the options. They put all the options on the table, including the possibility of a negotiated settlement with P&ID. But issues have gone beyond that now. We have succeeded in staying execution of that arbitrary award. We have also got leave to proceed on appeal. Although that is conditional because we are asked to deposit $200 million within the 60-day time frame. I'm saying that within 60 days, Nigeria could still appeal that conditional appeal.
No, I understand, but the issue here is people still saying that there should be some form of negotiation with P&ID. So my question for you is, do you think while this arbitration process and legal process is going on, should there be some form of negotiation on this side also?
Of course, we can't rule out all options. But what I'm saying is that the P&ID itself has been boxed into a corner. Because by the conviction, Nigeria is a sovereign country. UK is a sovereign country. A court of competent judicial has found that P&ID is rooted in fraud, at least as far as its activities in Nigeria is concerned. And that its assets has been ordered to be forfeited, wherever located. Okay, so it is also in the interest of P&ID to also look at the possibility of settlement. As it is now, the prospect of Nigeria eventually, setting aside this 9.6 billion arbitrary award is very high. And I think we must commend the Buhari administration for the initiative taken so far. We must also commend the Attorney General, in particularly the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. And I need to make this.
No, Mr. Shittu.
I need to make this point.
I think
yes.
the issue now here is
yes.
this is just, one step, at least in the right direction. There's yes. still, a long process to go. So shouldn't we be looking at, getting this right before we start, doing the commendation? Especially because P&ID has consistently said, for example, the case we had last week with the FCC arraigning, I think, 3 individuals before Federal High Court in Abuja. I mean, P&ID, for example, said that 2 individuals were not their representatives, and they're saying that, the whole process was a sham. So this is perhaps...
But of course, that's a lie. If you look at the contract that was executed in 2010, who witnessed those contracts for P&ID? The contract was witnessed by Mohammed Kusasi, who was of the Commercial Division of P&ID, and that's the person who's in custody now. On the side of the federal government, the contract was signed by the late Ruwan Lukman, who's of course dead now. But that it was witnessed by Grace Tiger, who's also... So
they have no grounds whatsoever.
They have no grounds because we all know that before Honorable Justice Eko, there was a full-blown trial. So, but what I will advise the Nigerian government...
one moment, because we'll need to go on a break and come to this, especially because we don't want this to happen again. It's embarrassing for the country, but we need to go on a quick break. And when we return, we'll take a look at, why we need to ensure this does not happen again and what we need to do. Stay with us. Well, we're on the final lap of the program, and Mr. Wahab Shittu is still with us discussing Nigeria's possibilities with this $9.6 billion judgment which was handed against the country. Now, you were going to give the Nigerian government an advice, but I would like you to also add this, statement that was made by President Muhammadu Buhari saying that Nigeria has lost $157.5 billion to illicit financial flow. So we don't want this to happen again. So what's the advice you have for the government?
I think we need to institutionalize a culture of transparency and accountability in governance. Secondly, we need to ensure strict adherence to due process and respect for the rule of law in the conduct of governmental affairs. Again, we need to put in place a regime of consequences for criminal infractions. You saw what the Honorable Minister of Information said. That investigation has found out from investigation, it was discovered that there was some kind of connivance between P&IDs and some officials of the Petroleum Resources Ministry. That is evidence of corruption. It also shows you why you and I and all of us must collaborate jointly in the fight against corruption.
So when you say there must be, adequate reprieve or some form of consequence, do you think we don't have enough?
Our laws are not strong enough to deter criminalities.
So do you think that's the biggest challenge?
Yes, consequences. There must be consequences for infractions. And then all of us must join hands in supporting the government in the war against corruption. We must own the fight. Because what has played out now is a scam on Nigeria. A scam on our collective commonwealth. Because if you take 9.6 billion naira from our foreign reserves, that is about 20%. They want to collapse the country through a conspiracy from some foreigners, and when they come in to do businesses here, we must insist on due process. For instance, there are so many P&ID contracts, all over the place.
I mean, you mean types of P&ID contracts?
The types, yes,
okay.
all over the place. For instance, I have told you that in this particular case, which was discovered, there's subversion of our domestic laws. Right. The contract was not taken through the Federal Executive Council. This contract was not taken through, the scrutiny of the Federal Minister of Justice. The National Office of Technology Promotion and Acquisition, was bypassed.
Right.
And then there was, massive FRS findings that FRS also discovered that this P&ID were not paying tax.
So
default in tax obligations.
So we look forward essentially to having Nigerian government and representatives prove this thing beyond reasonable doubt in the coming days.
I'm very, very optimistic.
Okay.
I particularly commend this federal government for what it has done.
Okay.
And even the FCC for conducting a painstaking investigation.
All right. Mr. Wahab Shittu, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us on
the
program.
It's my pleasure.
He's a lecturer in the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, and also counsel to the EFCC. Thank you so much. Well, that's our program for today. Thank you for watching. I am Kaido Kikyolu.
Well, yes, and thank you for watching as well. We will see you next week. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful weekend.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.